Next up, we're open. Roy.
Good evening. Kevin Roy, 711 Guilford Ave. I apologize in advance. I have bronchitis and asthma, and they don't go together very well at all. I just want to comment on the proposed tax cap. I don't think it's something we need. I understand that if it passes, it wouldn't be something where if funding was needed, that it couldn't be added to the budget. It could be done at a deliberative session with a majority vote from the voters. But if money was needed if this tax cap was in place, it could be added. But I just don't believe we need it. I think this select board, this school board, excuse me, has done a good job over the past few years in keeping increases in the budget limited, even reducing the budgets, along with the department heads, finance, and the budget committee. The budgets have been kept at minimal increases and actually been reduced. And I just wanted to make it clear, I think Barbara mentioned at the deliberative session that it was supported, the tax cap proposal was supported by members of the budget committee. A couple members did sign the petition, but this was not something that was voted on by the budget committee as a whole. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. Okay. Still open for comment. Oh, here we go. What do we got?
Dale Dormady, Wild Acres Road. A couple of concerns on warrant articles. One is the article that puts the responsibility for the default budget in the budget committee's hands. Be happy to hear otherwise, but I'm a little uncomfortable with the responsibility for both the primary budget and the default budget being in the same body. Right now, the budget committee has a complete opportunity to formulate their budget. They are responsible for it, the primary budget. Line by line reviews, we go through item by item. And the default budget, when we're done with that, the default budget currently follows a process, and it's a process that's, I understand, to be relatively complicated, but also laid out in some fairly clear terms. And financial people from the town and from the school are responsible for following those terms. And sure, there's some room for interpretation, but for the most part, it follows a defined process. I'm not so certain that if we take that default budget and put it in the hands of the budget committee, it will follow that same defined budget or that same defined process. And frankly, one of the petitioners this evening said the purpose of this warrant article was to allow the budget committee to present a lower budget so that the citizens had a choice. And that kind of makes my point about my concern is that the budget committee would not be following a process, but would instead simply be defining a lower budget. So it's either take the one we've developed or take this other one, which is much less. I recognize that currently that's the situation in the reverse on occasion. But the default budget currently follows a defined process. I think it should be that way, and the same body shouldn't be responsible for both. As far as the article about moving the voting later until May, I seriously don't believe that the reason we don't get attendance at the deliberative session is weather. I think they're long, detailed sessions, sometimes made longer by a number of paper votes. So I don't think moving it to May is going to bring the doors down on that place. There may be other reasons, that's not one.
Yeah. Somebody else, please.
I'm Alexandra Fraser. I live at 100 Joffin Shore Road, Guildford. I have 3 children in the school system. I have a middle schooler, and I have 2 twin daughters who are in the elementary school.
Can't hear her back here. Could you speak up, please?
Okay,
Can you
so
pull that, can you pull, the whole thing will move towards you if you give it a yank. There
kind
we
of
go.
nervous, sorry. I think everybody's up here discussing all these articles, and what they're kind of losing the bigger picture, which is the kids. And ultimately, no one actually mentions the kids. They talk about saving money and saving this, but who ultimately paid the price? The kids. So I look at this and I think, well, we already have a tax cap, and that is us. We cap what we are willing to spend because that is what the process of voting is about. You vote against something if you do not wish to pay any more taxes, and that is a decision that you make for yourself. With this tax cap, you no longer can decide what you are willing to pay more taxes for and what you are not. The whole point of an election process is for us to make decisions about what we want to spend our money on. The state of New Hampshire has already relinquished some controls over school districts, which means the towns receive less funding from the government. If more funding cuts are made by the state, then the town will have to pick up these expenses. If you have a tax cap, where will the money come from? Once this cap is in place, you will need a 3 to 5 majority to get rid of it. And who pays the price? The kids. So maybe some of you should actually think about the kids and instead of your pockets.
Jim. Seeing that there's no more comments?
One more.
With Mary.
Sandy Morrissey, Cherry Valley Road. I'm speaking against all 6 petition articles. Number one, I think just because we can now have a tax cap does not mean that we should. And I think as to the other 2 articles, we need to let the people who we have elected to do their job, do their job. And to the broader thoughts that have been expressed that trust is lost, the petitioners speak only for themselves and not for everyone. When I vote, I research who I vote for. It's a very deliberate choice, and I still support those choices for the people that are here and that work so hard. As to the Board of Education and things that are voted in general, one of the thoughts I have when they meet and discuss issues, whatever it may be that comes before the board, they are thoughtful, they reach into their own understanding of things, but they also have to consider educational research and what's best for the students. It's not just the money. They're all taxpayers here. They know everybody is having a hard time, and I think they keep that in mind. But they also have to consider what's best in educational research. So I am not in support of the petition articles.
Thank you.
Just 2 short points of clarification. I've heard tonight that David brought up the newfound situation. I heard that before in one of the deliberative sessions. And I think you're referring to the newfound decision to cut their budgets by 15%, something along that line. If I had that correct, it was the elected bodies that came forward with that decision. It was the school board and it was the Board of Selectmen who came forward with that budget independently, using their own judgment, if I have that correct. Well, that's what I read in the paper. If that's wrong, maybe some of our people from the paper can make corrections tomorrow. That's one clarification. The other is, and I couldn't wait for this opportunity. Gus and I have a little back and forth every time I vote. As a registered Republican and a voting Republican since the day I first voted at age 21, I think it was, in Minnesota, Ronald Reagan was one of my favorite presidents, and his trust but verify thing really had a trigger with me, because one of my favorite statements, and I use it with my kids, teenage kids when they go out, yeah, I trust you, but I'm going to verify. So I like that statement. I don't think Ronald Reagan would have applied that to what's going on with this tax cap. I think he would say the verification comes in the form of voting and an opportunity to vote you people back in or not. I don't think he would say that verification should take the form of hamstringing you so you can't use the judgment that we elected you to use. My opinion.
Good point, thank you. There goes Skip jumping up here. Good evening.
Deborah Liberty, 44 Sprucewood Drive. First of all, forgive me if I'm a little nervous. It's sad that people have to be hesitant to come up and speak before their community for fear of what might show up in the Guilford Grok or in the paper, but that's where I'm at, so forgive my shaky tone. I just want to end or share that I'm a huge fan of the town of Guilford. I am so incredibly proud to live here. I'm proud of the firefighters and the police officers. I'm proud of my budget committee members, even though I sometimes disagree. I'm proud of the work they do with the school budget and the school board committee to present something to the taxpayers of Guilford that I think enhances the quality of life. And I feel like that's getting lost tonight, is the quality of life that so many of us enjoy here in Guilford. And I know people are struggling, and I think our school board and our budget committee and our selectmen are working very hard to address that. And I feel like there is this core group of very angry people in the community who are setting forth petition articles that will have immediate and dangerous consequences, and the ripple effects will be far-reaching. And that quality of life is going to be destroyed. And I don't think our community members understand the ramifications of this. If our school is no longer able to fund things appropriately, if our selectmen are hamstringed and are not able to fund things appropriately, then that quality of life may disseminate. Excuse me. And people will not want to move here, and they won't want to send their children to our schools, and they won't want to live here and feel that they can be safe with their police department or their firefighters. So can we just talk on a more positive and proactive note and not have this angry discourse? There's got to be a better way to address the issues than such severe petition articles. So I want people to vote no on these articles. I want you to support your schools and to appreciate the hard work that our elected officials are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Hutchison, 32 Haywagon Road. I'm a teacher, and if anybody wants me to apologize for that, forget it. Because I am as proud as I can be to be a teacher in this community. I have taught here at Guilford High School for 25 years, started in '87. I'm not going anywhere. A lot of people ask me, why don't you? And it's because if you know our kids, you know the answer to that question. If you know our teachers, you know the answer to that question. That's why we're not going anywhere. This is tough. This is very tough. I mean, I'm disappointed in some of the rhetoric. Some of it is toxic. And it doesn't feel like the Guilford that I've come to know and love. There's been a concern expressed about the cost of the school board's budget, but it is the budget committee's budget that is presented to the voters on the ballot in March. If you want to criticize it, you're criticizing the budget committee's budget. Want to move the vote to after April, then you don't understand the way that hiring takes place in the state of New Hampshire. Hiring takes place in April. That's when contracts go out. If you want to move the vote, then we aren't competitive. We do not have a shot at the best people, and that's what Guilford deserves. To quote an old song, I don't want no scrubs. That's the truth of it. Guilford deserves the best. I am very, very proud of the kids that we turn out. I know what they are. You know what they are. We are losing sight of that. It's just depressing on a lot of levels. This is a wonderful community. We need to support it. We need to continue things. If you are looking at this year's budget, our school board has trimmed nearly $1 million out of the budget. That's responsible. People hear the frustration, and it's being addressed. That trimming is taking place. When the superintendent told me that we were cutting an English position at the high school, I did not have a good reaction. He can vouch for that one. That was painful. We are going through that. The trimming process is painful, but it is responsible and it is taking place. These elected officials hear you. They are not irresponsible. This is a wonderful community. People are trying to work it out. The negatives do not serve us. We are proud of our schools. We are proud of where we live. We cannot damage it. We cannot reduce it to a place where some communities in the state are living right now. That's not where we want to go. People are listening. People are responding. There is nothing irresponsible going on here.
Crop TV.